When I first booted up 63 Days, I honestly had no idea what to expect out of this game. This is a relatively obscure and very niche type of game that's releasing for the PC, PS5, and the Xbox systems. 63 Days follows the story of two brothers in Warsaw, Poland, who are facing the Nazis' occupation, leading a small resistance type of group. The game is an isometric, top down, stealth focused game that's focused on tactics rather than the action, especially since you're literally facing the most overwhelming odds in this game. I wanted to do a quick shout out to the developers, Destructive Creations, for the review code. This is my channel's first actual sponsored code, and I'm thankful that they supported us with the code to play the game and get a chance to review this game early. I wanted to start off with story because that is the motivation that gets you through these campaign missions. The game is designed with 6 missions, each of which depend on how good you are at the game. At least take about, I would say, an hour-ish or more to complete. The story takes place during World War II, but instead of you playing the typical nations like the United States and the fight against the Nazis, you're instead part of a small resistance group in Warsaw, Poland. It's a unique take, I think, on the war that, in my opinion, shows the harsh brutality of what World War II really brought onto the civilians during their occupation. Levels actually feel really hopeless. I mean, even your comrades are getting slaughtered in front of you, despite you finishing out a mission and finishing your objective. The story focuses on these two main characters, Youngster, the younger brother, and Lynx, who's the older brother. Both have these specific skills, which actually lends itself to the whole gameplay style that each one of them brings. Gameplay involves starting a campaign mission on a difficulty. The difficulty, at least for me, was, I'm going to be honest guys, it was really freaking hard on normal. Hard enough to where I had to drop this one to easy, and I still struggled during some of these missions. To give you guys just some context, I've never played one of these top-down stealth games. So there was a really big learning curve for me at least, and honestly, I mean, I was struggling again in that tutorial where you had to just get both brothers out of this whole hide-and-seek game. And I mean, it took me forever to get through that. Stealth is a really, really difficult thing for me. Me being bad at the game aside, the gameplay is actually really, really tactical because you have to avoid sight lines of the soldiers, which actually goes really, really far. And on top of that, you're not supposed to make any sounds that'll alert those soldiers along the way when you're trying to finish these objectives. You might ask why, but it's ultimately because you're honestly really weak and you're outnumbered as hell. Getting caught is basically a mission failure and a death sentence. Thankfully, Destructive Creations was kind enough to have these constant autosave moments that really saved my ass during the scenarios. On top of that, there is a combat mode that you can toggle on and off, but honestly guys, I rarely had any luck pulling out the guns and going guns blazing. Stealth is really going to be the focus of the game and is honestly the way to go during the mission. To break down the whole gameplay loop, you have an objective which is usually outlined in the whole intro to the mission where, the characters are talking. You're going to either plant some bombs on some Nazi planes or break into a camp, free workers. You've got side missions that you can complete as well during those missions. And on top of that, there are hidden collectible paper things that you're finding on the walls. You control 2 and sometimes more characters, each with their specific skills. Youngster can climb the vines. Lynx is scared of heights. Youngster can throw a knife, which makes a little bit of noise as it kills a soldier. Lynx can choke them out silently. Youngster is too weak to pick up bodies and hide them, but Lynx, the older brother, is strong enough to do just that. Both characters have their own way of distracting enemies too. If you're playing as Youngster, you could throw an unlimited amount of rocks to get soldiers to basically turn around and move their gaze somewhere else, which gives you a good opportunity to sneak up on them and kill them. Lynx is going to make some noise, causing the soldier to leave their post and investigate by shouting, hey, or something like that. I think it's a good distraction if you're fast enough to come up behind and choke them out, or at least set them up with a Youngster knife kill, so that one does work in tandem. Speaking of tandem, there is something called a planning mode that basically will slow down time and lets you select things that you want to do. You then hit activate and both characters will do it simultaneously. Enemy soldiers have a line of sight that goes super far out. I mean, it is crazy how far these guys can see, but when you click them, there is a certain part where it gets dashed, and what that basically means is that if you go prone, you can basically just avoid their line of sight, and it really helps being prone. I mean, you find yourself prone a lot in the missions. I'll say that the music too is really atmospheric and just suits that whole environment. I do like being able to zoom in the camera and hearing different sound effects like the lights that are flickering or soldiers that are working on the airplanes. And I think there's a really good level of detail when it comes to making these environments and the missions really challenging. The normal difficulty versus what happened when I went to easy, for example, had a soldier that was patrolling constantly through an area who was honestly a pain in my ass. So I was able to find a way to take him out and make my life a lot easier in that mission. I think little tweaks like that, like having more soldiers, I haven't really seen what like the hard difficulties and things like that do. I could barely hang on normal, but it does add to that difficulty level if you're like this type of stealth game masochist. But honestly, like I said, guys, I dropped that shit to easy after I was stuck for what felt like hours and was just frustrated on one of the first missions, which honestly, if I look back, that first mission really wasn't that hard at all. I just wasn't able to understand how to get through it at the time. Like I said, at first, it was extremely frustrating to me, and I honestly thought it was just me and just how bad I was at stealth. So, again, I'm not a stealth gamer at all, but I can just see how this can actually be fun for some people. I found myself getting caught a lot first until I got used to how to plan and just move through these missions to complete the objectives. You know, figuring out how to distract them, how to make them turn around, figuring out how to lure them certain places and kill them. I got into way better of a flow after the second half, I would say, of the first mission, where you're, fixing these spotlights and sabotaging these planes. I was able to finish that one a lot faster than the first part. Honestly, it felt really nice planning something out and watching my characters basically put that plan into action and complete the objective. I will say, though, the issues I had with the game really came down to a mix of not only just me not being like a pro at something like this, but a little bit more like some odd design choices when it came to the gameplay. If I just put my skill level to the side, because I mean, I don't think that's a fair point at all. I really just personally hated how limited I felt during the game when it came to figuring out what to do in these levels. I felt like the levels weren't more like a canvas with multiple ways for me to finish the mission, and it felt like there was kind of like a puzzle and just one way to get through the mission, and you kind of had to figure out what it was that you had to do. There's a formula on what soldier you need to distract and kill, who to go to next, and so on until you finish the mission. And it felt like I spent most of my time figuring out what I was supposed to do versus making my way to the objective and adapting along the way. There's always a soldier that's kind of watching an area that needs to be turned around or distracted so that you could kill someone else, which at that point, he'll turn back around, not really care. I mean, as long as there's no body there, right? Even though the guy's gone, and then kill him next. And it's really my largest complaint when it came to this style of game, because I feel like multiple ways of getting the objective done would have actually made the game a lot less punishing, because honestly, guys, it felt like I was experimenting, trying something out, failing, trying something out, failing, and the mission failed screen was just constantly happening. So I am glad that there were a lot of autosaves, but it did get really draining having to restart consistently, and it just got really annoying at that point. I truly just wish that we were able to like better adapt to the situation after you got caught, and it wasn't just an immediate mission failure. Another weird issue I had was like, again, the odd design choices, I think, for the characters, which force you into like specific types of style of play. It didn't make sense to me that youngster couldn't really like slit a throat quietly, but later on in the story there's other characters that have knives that could. And I mean, I get that his older brother's bigger and he's stronger, he can carry the bodies, he could choke people out, but it really sucks that there's just one person that has that silent takedown, and then everyone, I mean, the other guy was just like this way riskier, much louder takedown by throwing this knife and just hearing the guy just scream. I don't think it's a huge issue here, but it was something that I feel like could have at least helped the flow of the game for me, because honestly, guys, just a little bit of sound sometimes near an enemy is a mission fail instantly. I mean, everyone gets alerted, the whole base knows where you're at, they throw a grenade at you, and you are dead, starting all over from the autosave, going, okay, I can't throw a knife at this guy, it's too loud. I did play this one on the PS5 and the PC. I do actually prefer it on the PC because of the whole top-down approach, being able to use the mouse and clicking things. I don't think the PS5 controls were terrible. I just feel like it was a little weird, having to hold triggers and activate the ability at the same time, and it really got confusing, especially like in the height of like a mission, right, where you need to choke someone out before they turn around at the perfect time and catch you, kill you, and try it again. In my opinion, I feel like the PC controls were just overall a lot better, and I felt like it was just a lot easier to not screw things up. But those controls also weren't the best. I did switch to the RTS style because I felt like it was overall better. But there were just a lot of moments that if I clicked someone, it wasn't switching to them and instead was moving the other person unless I used the numbers on my keyboard. Sometimes, I would double click on accident because, I was just stressed out and dude would just get up and just start running, which is completely my mistake, but it's just really, really easy to kind of just mess up. I did have some like weird bugs, I would say, which are kind of getting patched from what I've seen. There was already a pretty big patch. My character got stuck on a ledge. No one could find him. And then eventually they threw a grenade at his area and blew him up, and I had to start over. I was basically invisible. But, nothing crazy glitch wise, nothing that's kind of just like game breaking. I would say, though, that the worst issue in the game is the weird pathing that would happen when I was clicking an area for my character to go to. They, for some reason, would always choose the worst path possible and just get caught despite an easier path being right in front of them. To give you guys a quick example, let's say I'm hiding in a house that has got two entrances, right? One entrance at the top and one entrance on the left. The top exit has a soldier who's talking to another soldier. If you go through there, you're screwed. He's going to see you right away. The left side, completely clear, right? Absolutely no one there, no way to get caught. If I click the left side of the map just to get my character to just walk out of the house and go left, for some reason he'll decide to open the door at the top with both soldiers, get caught, get murdered and mowed down, instead of just going the easy way, right? And just taking that left door. I had to restart, do it again, but this time I actually had to click the door on the left to get him to open that. And I mean, immediately have to like run or drop, right? Because people's like are just scanning, right? The soldiers are going left, right, scanning. I mean, if you open the door at the wrong moment, you're screwed again. So just really, really tense situations like that where the slightest mistake just ends in a game fail. I mean, I'm not sure if there's a way to make the pathing just a little smarter, but I feel like it would really help avoid like dumb mistakes that are just like really, really not your fault because the pathing just constantly got me caught and murdered. To put these issues aside, I think the game became a lot better in time for me. They did release a patch that I mentioned earlier that helped with a lot of the weird glitches that I saw, day one when I was playing. There was a lot of things that they changed in most chapters, which I think is overall a good sign. On top of that, the developers have released a free demo for you guys to try out yourself, which is, again, a really, really good sign so that, you don't have to risk any of your money. And I mean, you could tell that this is like a passion project for them and that they truly care, which I think, again, is also great. I started to get the flow down during the game, and despite me being bad at it, I do feel like the game could have been just a little better if it had more freedom and some design changes to the characters so that they didn't feel just so limited. I felt like the game was a lot more puzzle solving versus something like Hitman, which has, multiple ways for you to finish out the objective and what feels like a sandbox when it comes to the missions. I honestly started to get really, really frustrated with the pathing issues. And I mean levels where I was just trying shit until I could figure out how to really get by in the mission. The game to me is above average, and if I had to rate the game, I think it is a 7 out of 10 for me. I think the game is fun most of the time, especially when you figure out the flow of the map and what you need to do to finish the objective. But I do think what really holds the game back is that lack of freedom, or at least different ways to get to the objective, as well as like the little bugs that would happen during pathing, some confusing controls if you're on controller, and just weird design choices, again, that just make the game a little more difficult for you. The game was an introduction to me for this top-down stealth genre that honestly, guys, I didn't even know this stuff existed. And I think this is a super niche field in gaming. It's not my preferred type of game, especially because I'm bad at stealth. But I think if you're curious, I think if you want to try something that's tactical, that's really intense, definitely try downloading the free demo and give this one a shot for you guys. For me, at least, it was my introduction, and I'm definitely excited to play more games like this. As I said, I started to get a lot better at it, and I started to get a little bit more of a click going with like my flow, my planning, figuring things out, and just getting through a mission. And ultimately, that part feels really, really rewarding, right? Like, I mean, by the end of some missions, man, I felt like I went through a Souls game because of just how many times I died. So I love that rewarding feeling that you get from games. That wraps it up for my 63 days review. I think if you made it this far, guys, I truly appreciate you. Drop a like, Hit the subscribe button if you don't want to miss any more reviews. Let me know what you think of the game in the comments, if you're planning on buying, if you're planning on playing. And I'm super thankful again for the review key. I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks.